Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Please allow me, Ahlam Abul Fir, to welcome you all at the fourth annual English Language Conference 2026, jointly organized by Queen Rania Teacher Academy and Georgia State University. This year's conference theme, inclusive teaching, inclusive English teaching in a changing world, reflects our shared commitment to creating learning environments where every student feels seen, valued, and empowered to succeed. Over the course of this conference, educators, researchers, and practitioners from around the world are coming together to exchange ideas, share experiences, and explore innovative approaches to English language teaching in today's rapidly evolving educational landscape. At QRTN, the mission has always centered on empowering educators and empowering the quality of teaching and learning through professional development, collaboration, and innovation. Together with GSU, this partnership continues to build bridges between global expertise and local educational impact, making this conference an important platform for meaningful dialogue and professional growth. Before we begin, I would like to encourage everyone to actively participate in today's session. As you listen to the presentation, please feel free to prepare your questions and share them in the chat box throughout the session. We will have a Q&A segment at the end, where the speaker will address as many of your questions and comments as possible. It's now my pleasure to introduce our speaker, Ms. Kristen Da Silva, founder of Maple Leaf English Canadian Coaching. She brings extensive experience and valuable insights in the field of English language education. She supports learners worldwide in developing fluency and confidence. She has also developed curriculum for newcomer populations in Canada, including an English empowerment program for refugee women in collaboration with Syrian Canadian Foundation. Today, Ms. Kristen will be speaking with us about this topic specifically. Her session is From Silence to Speaking, Building ESL Fluency Throughout Storytelling and Trauma-Informed Practice. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Miss Kristen Da Silva. Miss Kristen.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, first of all, I just want to say thank you so much to the Queen Rania Teacher Academy and, of course, Georgia State University for the opportunity to be here today. My name is Kristen Da Silva, and I am an educator, ESL specialist, and founder of Maple Leaf English Canadian Coaching based here in Toronto, Ontario. My background, firstly, is in theater in education, TESOL, and public speaking. And for over 16 years, I've worked with English language learners across different countries, different age groups, and learning contexts as well. So much of my work focuses on adult ESL learners, especially newcomers to Canada, and helping them prepare for high pressure English examinations such as IELTS and CELPIP. Over the years, I began noticing a common pattern among my learners and even students who had very strong grammar knowledge and a large vocabulary. They often struggled to communicate naturally and confidently in real world situations. Many of them became heavily dependent on memorization and scripted responses and sort of a fear of making mistakes. So this led me to explore a different approach, one that was rooted in storytelling, one that was rooted in strategy and meaningful interaction, and also creating that emotionally safe learning environment. So today I will be sharing how storytelling and strategy-based instruction can help learners move from memorization to genuine communication while building the confidence and fluency needed for both real-life English as well as English examination contexts. So I will begin sharing my screen with you. All right, so here we are, and we are just about to begin. Can you see my screen, everyone? Can I just get a quick thumbs up if you are able to see my screen? Thank you so much. All righty, welcome. Thank you so much. So, from silence to speaking. And this essentially has come from my work with Syrian refugee women who live in Canada. And of course, most of them come in very shy, not able to have the confidence to speak. And so I've created a safe space for them through storytelling, through trauma-informed practice to actually develop their confidence. So let us begin. So by the end of this session, you will be able to walk away with just a few things, and some of them are how to apply these storytelling techniques to students that you may have that are going through similar issues in terms of confidence in English, which is very common. You will also learn how to use simple structures, guide your learners through structured speaking frameworks that reduce anxiety and encourage that natural flow of speaking. How to create safe environments that I know most of you already probably do, but really talking about the importance of that culture within the classroom where learners are feeling emotionally ready to speak. And of course, design some engaging activities as well. All right. So the reality is that most ESL students understand everything, or most, and they have somewhat good grammar. But when it is time to speak, they freeze. If this is something that you have noticed with your students, can I see you maybe just put in the chat a number one if you work with ESL students and they understand what you're saying, they they understand some grammar frameworks, but when it becomes time to speak in the classroom, they freeze. They become very shy. So I'm seeing lots of ones in the chat. So definitely this is very common. So as we can see here, they freeze. Why? A couple of reasons. One, hesitation. Learners pause. They restart as they begin. Their mind trails off. Even when they know what to say, their train of thought is gone. They go blank, essentially. They go ahead with overthinking. And I'm seeing Suha in the chat saying fear of making mistakes. Absolutely, yes. The pressure of producing perfect sentences in front of a group of people in real time creates that mental bottleneck for them. And of course, this leads to silence. When the anxiety becomes too great, learners simply opt out of speaking altogether. This happens, for example, in one class, but going forward, they may lack the confidence to join another class that may be happening the following week. So it's really important that we create that safe space for them to speak. And I know that you've already um, put in the chat yes and number one, so we're able to move on here. So speaking challenges are often emotional. So as teachers, we are usually generally empathetic towards our learners, okay? And it's not just about linguistic, okay? People are coming into your classroom with from many different backgrounds and life experiences, many of which we do not know about. So it's so important that as we as educators, we bear that in mind. So what we see in the classroom would be a learner who hesitates, a learner who may stay quiet or gives one-word answers here and there. And necessarily, they're not really struggling with English, but they may be navigating something that is deeper. Okay? A fear of judgment, a painful past experience, maybe in another English learning context. And they simply lack that safe space to take risks. Again, we don't know what they're coming in, what their thought, what their mind has been through. And as someone who's worked with Syrian refugees, um, it's really important that we remember this. That English is it's very emotional for them. So the real barriers to speaking, as someone mentioned, is the fear of making mistakes. Being corrected publicly feels humiliating. Even if we can relate to this from going back to maybe your childhood days in the traditional classroom, when maybe a teacher calls on you and you're not confident in that subject area to speak. Um, and maybe he or she says something to you, and it sort of makes you feel embarrassed or humiliated. Um, I've personally been in that situation growing up. And so it is not a good feeling. And I definitely, as a teacher, my my role is to not make anyone feel that way. Okay. Having low self-confidence, having learners underestimate their own abilities, right? And negative prior experiences, something that we mentioned before, classrooms that penalized errors, right? Again, coming from different backgrounds. I live in Toronto, Canada right now, but I grew up and was born in Trinidad and Tobago, where sort of corporal punishment was there. So if you made errors, you were afraid to even say anything after that, right? So errors were penalized. And of course, that gives you that non-safe speaking environment where there's pressure, it pressures silence within learners before they start. Yes, putting ourselves in their shoes. I'm seeing so much empathy in the chat. Thank you so much. I love this. Okay. So here we go. Contents and experience. So grounded in my real work with newcomers to Canada as well as refugees. The approach is shaped by direct experience with working, as mentioned, with Syrian newcomer women, some of which were refugees, some of which were not. And I've worked with the Syrian Canadian Foundation here, learners with diverse language levels, rich life histories, and real barriers to speaking. So across that work, three consistent truths emerged. Number one, confidence outweighs language abilities. Language carries an invisible weight that we do not see. We, as some English teachers, may say, okay, well, we're just coming in to learn English, but they are carrying a very heavy weight. There's fear of uncertainty, past trauma that does not just stay at the door, right? But effective teaching, we as teachers and educators, effective teaching acknowledges the whole person, the full student, and not just the language learner. Emotional safety enables speech. As an immigrant myself, I understand how entering a new environment reshapes your sense of identity and voice. So speaking requires feeling safe and not just knowing the words. I myself, my first language is English, and moving to Canada from Trinidad and Tobago, be as an immigrant myself, someone who speaks the language of the country that I've moved to, I felt the pressure of moving here and speaking, even though my first language was English. So, someone whose first language is not English, I can imagine how much heavier that pressure is for them. And so, within Maple Leaf English, this is the safe space that I've created for them to learn their voice, to know that it's okay to make mistakes because we all did, even myself, right? As a native English speaker. Okay, so what we have to do is have that shift in focus from controlled practice to real communication, right? When we think to controlled practice, we think we go back to some of us, go back to our childhood days of primary and secondary school with teachers who are um, teaching with those traditional way, rules. So we have three columns here. We have moving away from, moving toward, and what supports this shift. So we want to move away from memorization. Okay, even if you're working with children or adults, memorization is a thing of the past. We need to move toward meaningful communication. And how do we do that? By assisting them with structured speaking support. Okay. So, yeah, some people may say, well, you're spoon feeding them, you're giving them too much. However, when you're dealing with people who's, it's such a delicate situation where people's first language is not English and they're submerged in an English speaking country. We need to scaffold them in helping them as much as we can to build meaningful communication. And we do that by giving them those structured speaking supports. Now, we also want to move away from controlled drills, okay? And we want to encourage open-ended speaking. That means that we don't give them a structured beginning and end. You need to start here, and this is how you finish. We want to let them speak as they may. Okay. If this is something you agree with, I'd love to see you put a yes in the chat or maybe a thumbs up. Um, so that, I could see that we're on the same page in terms of this. I'm seeing some thumbs up, I'm seeing some yeses. Awesome. Thank you so much for that. So, control drills is something personally that I've had in my life growing up. And, I could even say that I've had some um post-traumatic stress from that. And so, as mentioned before, I want my students to feel comfortable learning from me and really help them to speak as much as they would like and be as comfortable. And even sometimes when they're speaking and maybe they've made an error with their punctuation, it's not my way to stop and say, oh, you've pronounced that incorrectly. It's actually this way. Because that's just going to stop them in their tracks. They're going to retract and not feel as confident to speak again. So being able to really speak on, having them speak on is important. And we can help support this by providing them with real life communication tasks, right? As an ESL teacher, we can do that by putting them in a situation, a role-playing situation where I'm the doctor and they're the patient, and we are having a conversation, and just see how that goes. Having a background in drama and theater education, I really believe in in having this sort of role-playing situation. All right, accuracy first speaking. Again, correcting them every 2 seconds or just highlighting their errors, especially in a group setting, can be very terrifying for many ESL students. So instead of accuracy first speaking, we want to have expression first speaking interactions. All right. So having it more natural. I'm the doctor, you're the patient. How may I help you today? What are you feeling? And they could come in and just have them begin speaking naturally, and just develop their own voice, knowing firstly that they are being heard, right? That they're being encouraged and they're being supported. And how can we support them is by building that learner-focused environment. Can I see a thumbs up for learner-focused environments? I just believe going forward in our education field, having our learners at the core is very, very important. Just moving away from the teacher led sort of lesson where we just tell them what to do and then they go ahead and do it, and we expect um, the best from them. We really need to support them. So this transformation, this shift in the way we think transforms speaking from sort of a performance into communication. Right. But why storytelling? I've mentioned storytelling quite a few times, but why is storytelling important for us? First of all, storytelling is the first most natural way, even before brick and mortar schools, there was always storytelling. This is the natural way that humans communicate. Okay. As mentioned, long before these textbooks existed, humans passed down knowledge, culture, and meaning through story. So by tapping into storytelling, we're tapping in to our and your students' natural instinct, giving them a familiar human framework for organizing and expressing their thoughts in a new language, right? So asking them things that, they may have gone through. And they could choose to share what they like to what they would like to share and not, but really giving them that natural uh, pod to communicate with is important. Organizing their ideas. So, of course, you as a teacher, you can model, first of all, how this is going to be done. Okay. Their narrative structure gives learners a clear beginning, middle, and end. So we know that when they're beginning to speak, we're giving them that structure of you can begin, and you know, first of all, let them express themselves clearly. And then afterwards, we can just gently let them know when we're speaking, especially for IELTS and CELPIP preparation, for people who are looking for permanent residence. In Canada, it's important that they learn how to organize their ideas, all right? And knowing that there's a beginning, middle, and end, that reduces that cognitive load for them. So they're able to put in their minds, or even if they write it down on paper for tests, where we can begin, where we can go, and how we can end. So they know they have all of these ideas, but how are we going to get it out? We help them scaffold by putting a beginning, middle, and end for them. Speaking with structure. So from the organization of the ideas, we now help them with the structure of it, right? We mentioned story frameworks as scaffolding, so they know what to say next, okay? And by saying this, we don't want to sound um, too template-like, okay? We don't want to sound too template-like because personal stories invite authentic expression. So learners can talk about real life and not just textbook scenarios. And I know that AI, ChatGPT can help with these stories and how to put them together, but we really want them to practice this out loud so that it does not sound rehearsed, but it builds that natural, genuine engagement, all right, so that they can thrive in this space where they live, where everyone is speaking English. And of course, using natural language. Okay. When learners are focused on meaning rather than the form, language emerges. So even though we've given them that little story structure of the beginning, middle, and end, we need to practice with them aloud in our classes. Okay, giving them a safe space so they're able to speak fluently and more naturally. And that, of course, comes with practice. Someone says here that the teacher should be a good actor as well. Absolutely. And this is what it's based on, right? For me, it's drama. and bringing that natural space. Um, bringing those theatrical approaches is so important. Okay, so thank you for that comment. So we're going to go here with a layered, learner-centered teacher framework. So we're going to go through this a little bit quickly as I know time is coming up. If I can also get a quick time check, that would be pretty helpful. So it's not a single method, it's an integrated approach that draws on multiple evidence-based practices that I've come across that we've put together to create a classroom where the learners feel safe. All right. So, narrative frameworks that gives structure and meaning to speaking. So we spoke about that beginning, middle, and end. But now that drama-based techniques, really introducing that role play in your classroom, even if it's something that you as a teacher may not be 100% comfortable with, it is something that I really implore you to put into your classes. And putting yourself out there. And even if you make a mistake, that's all about being human, and it's good to show them this as well. So, role play and performance activities that lower that inhibition and build that expressive range, and just having the classroom a comfortable space for making mistakes and for sort of looking back and smiling at yourself and saying, oh, that's what I did, but that's okay. All right. Using these frameworks can reduce anxiety and support independent production. Okay. Trauma-informed practice is a term that we've been hearing more recently. So this classroom culture, it prioritizes that emotional safety, choice, and dignity above all. So every week when you meet with your ESL learners, you want them excited to come into class because they know that this is a safe space where my teacher sometimes makes mistakes and she smiles about it and makes a joke and it's okay, as well as my other classmates. And it's a safe space where we can learn. And this is the best way to learn, okay, in this very safe space. I'm seeing lots of questions coming in, but I'm quickly going to go through here. Um, so when learners know where they're going in a response, they can focus on communicating rather than constructing a
Sorry,
response.
sorry, Miss
No
Kristen.
problem.
It is a gentle reminder that you have 5 minutes to end the session. So
Okay.
you will have 2 to 3 minutes, and I will end after that. Thank you.
Okay, is there a chance that I can answer a couple of questions?
Yes, we can take these minutes to answer the questions. Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen at this point because we've gone through the bulk of it. And so I would love to answer some questions. Hi, everyone. So I'm going to just quickly look in the chat here, and I did see a couple of questions coming in. So someone has asked here, Huda, it says, is reading aloud helpful for speaking in English? And I would say absolutely yes. It is very helpful. And this is something in my ESL classes that I have my students do every class. So sometimes we have passages that we need to dissect and sort of do a comprehension on it based on IELTS and CELPIP preparation. And instead of me taking that time to uh, to read the entire passage, I will give my students each one paragraph to read. And again, it's a safe space for them to make mistakes. And sometimes afterward, I will give it one full read through so that they are also able to hear the fluency of it and maybe some of those words where they can pronounce as well. So yes, that for that question. Okay, so I'm just gonna look here. How to build vulnerability-based trust with my students. So of course, first of all, having them show up to your class and creating a safe space where you allow them to be themselves, first of all, lay the rules down, say, hey, this is a safe space for all of us. And making sure if you're doing this in an online platform, that all cameras are on so that we're able to see each other and to know making eye contact with your learners is very important. And so by sharing your own story of your journey of life, what you've been through, okay, because we all have our stories. If they see that you are vulnerable, then they feel safe to be vulnerable as well. So it's important that you're comfortable to share parts of your story with them. Okay, because in my sessions, I'm also an immigrant and they are immigrants. So we share that. And if we're able to come to that common ground, we realize that it's not that I'm above you and you are below me, but that we are all human together and that we can learn from each other as well. So that is how you can build some vulnerability trust with your students, knowing that you are human as well. You are not above them. You are here to help them on their journey. So I hope that was an answer for your question.
Thank you, Miss Kristen. Thank you. يعني your questions, colleague, are very important, but unfortunately, we comes to the end of this session. Allow me to thank you, Miss Kristen, for such insightful and engaging session. Your perspectives on building ESL fluency through storytelling and other important pedagogies you mentioned are very important and gives us very much to reflect on as we continue working toward more inclusive and effective English language teaching practices. Also, I would like to thank our audience for your active participation and engagement throughout the session. We hope today's discussion inspires your ideas, meaningful conversations, and continued collaboration among educators and professionals in our field. Thank you.